It's Sports by the Book at the South Point Studio. Here's Jeff Parles.
Welcome in. Final Saturday of the month of March. It's Sports by the Book at the South Point Studio. I'm Jeff Parles. Alex White's alongside. Not frozen after last night's first night at the ballpark, which is good.
Yeah.
It's a good thing.
No, the temperature was okay. It was a great night. Besides, we didn't get the win, but it was a lot of fun. We had Andy Martello, myself, and Frank all out there on the field.
Six runs in that ballpark here in Vegas. Doesn't happen very often, which means probably bet the over tonight if you're betting minor league baseball. But we won't bore you on that. Let's get into this here today. There's a whole MLB slate. There's a whole, oh my God, why is it everyone's playing in hockey but two teams today?
Yes.
What happened? What's going on? It's like, 15 games in hockey, so we'll get that today. We'll have, of course, the first two Elite Eight games. A lot of orange. If you have orange as the color of the tournament, you're in reasonable shape right now after Tennessee knocked off Creighton late last night. Of course, Purdue, really dominant second half against Gonzaga. The KO, a Bulldog team that in the end ended up being probably where they should have been. And then in Dallas last night, and that's where we'll start. And NC State did it again. And I think it actually, Alex, had more to do with the opponent more than them last night, where Marquette. And look, this can happen. This can happen in the NCAA tournament. The lights get bright. It'll be a little tough. Our friends over at Shot Quality, Justin Perry and company, who do a great job over there. Last night, the shot quality score, so that's based off of the shots that they're getting, what the expected percentage of those shots are, and adding up the points. That equated to a 15-point Marquette win off the shot quality last night. And it was an NC State 9-point win in the end because the Marquette Golden Eagles season comes to a screeching halt against an 11 seed thanks to a hearty 4 of 31 from 3 last night. And look, this magical run that NC State is on is beyond the pale at this point. I just pretty much ridiculous that this NC State team is where they are. And it's pretty ironic, Alex, that they'll actually play an ACC foe. And really, the win that really catapulted the run. Yes, I know they won 2 games. They beat Louisville. They beat Syracuse before getting Duke in the ACC quarterfinal last Friday. But that was really the win that was like, okay, this has just gotten real here. Potentially at NC State stealing the bid, and here they are as one of the final 8 in the NCAA tournament.
It is wild, Jeff, and we were talking off air. This is one team that kind of slid under the radar for us, even covering this sport throughout the whole season, doing our long hour-and-a-half Saturdays. And I didn't bet on NC State much throughout the entire year. So it is pretty amazing what they are doing. I think this will be a tough matchup, though, like we talked about the other day with some other matchups, being so familiar with each other in this one, I think they've got their hands full here with Duke.
Well, and Duke is, look, people like complaining about when Duke goes on a tournament run to begin with, but this is especially ridiculous, the run that Duke has had to go through, or run, in quotes here. 13th-seeded Vermont, 12th-seeded James Madison. Last night they beat Houston by 3. Jamal Shead with the severely sprained ankle couldn't go in the second half. And that ended up, to me, being the total difference in the ball game. If Shead plays and does not get hurt, Houston probably survives, even though it was a Houston first half, 23-22 at halftime. 54-51 when it's all said and done. Easy under. Duke wins outright as a 4.5-point underdog. So it was all dogs in Dallas last night. But right now, again, early number, and we'll break this down in full tomorrow. Ann is already betting NC State money line tomorrow, which you can't really blame her at this point. 7 behind us, 6.5. The one interesting thing I will bring up, though, Alex, when these two teams met in Washington, D.C., a hearty 2.5 weeks ago, Duke was an 11.5-point favorite.
Wow.
I know NC State's on this magical run, but I don't think that justifies a 5-point move, 4.5-point move based off of what we've seen the last 2 weeks.
It's tough, though, Jeff. I mean, each game that they win, right, their power rating has moved up. So I mean, that's about 4 wins right there, and adjusting it, that probably is the right number. Even though we have seen Duke look very good, you'll have to fill me in a little bit. So I was following on my phone that second half. Houston was in that game, even without a Shed there. So how did it look on TV? Were their bench players? I mean, we talked about their depth all year, so they really stepped up. How did they keep that so tight?
What for
Houston? That second. I
for
mean, that
Houston,
second
it
half
was just
following
it was just a defense. I mean,
Okay.
it's just what it was. I mean, Duke made the shots when they need to. Phil Pawski finally played well last night. We talked about that yesterday. Finally had a good game. The guards for Duke just weren't as good, and for Houston, it was Cryer and Roberts. It was really Cryer that kept them in the game. But again, as this tournament has proved, Alex, and really the two big boys out of the Big 12 kind of proved this. And it's, for some people, they'll say it's unfair because Houston's going to end the year as a top 20 offense. Yeah, but watch them.
Right.
Like, the way they play is conducive to offensive fiascos. This is now, you look at Houston now, these last 3 tournaments where they were favored in the Elite Eight against Villanova as a 5 seed, don't even get to 50 in that game. Last year, the defense breaks and they can't hang in a game when Miami gets into the 80s. And then this year, you score 51 points. That's it. You're done.
Yeah.
And I think this tournament has proven more so than anything where you look at the remaining offenses here, Alex. The weakest offense by Ken Pom. NC State's kind of like you're throwing the regular season numbers out at this point. They're 43rd on offense. Everyone else is top 30 in offense. So, yeah, you can be defense first, but you better have an offense that is not like for Houston. It's different because the numbers show top 20 offense. The eye test doesn't show top 20 offense by any stretch. And that's why Tennessee, who in the past has struggled because they've been very defensive centric and have had offensive problems, why Tennessee was able to survive last night. They hit Creighton with an 18-0 run in the middle of the second half. And when Creighton got back into the game, hit 2 big threes. So Tennessee is very different than what we've seen the last few years under Barnes. But you got to have some sort of offense, and offense better than defense, which will really infuriate you if you're a Kentucky Wildcat fan. But that's a different discussion for a different time, to say the very least. All right, Alex, let's get into the first game here today. Illinois against Connecticut. Boston, Mass, the site for this one, 155, the total 8.5. UConn up now as a 8.5-point favorite. This has gone up a little bit through the openers and now. The question I'll ask you before we look at the full handicap of this game, we did touch 9 for a little bit, but how high do we go by the time this game tips? Do we get back to 9? Do we go through 9? What are your thoughts here on that?
I would say we get back to 9 here. I think a lot of people are betting on UConn now. I mean, looking at their tournament success last year and now this year and how they have covered these games. I lean to Illinois here. I took them in the first half, though. I really think they can keep this game close. I worry that they can't do it for a full 40 minutes. But, I mean, this run that Illinois has been on is incredible as well. They're 5-0 against the spread in their last 5, and their offense is definitely clicking. I also think that they are starting to play better defense. And you mentioned it yesterday, and I think it was a great point. At one point in the season, they were a top 25 defense. So now they're getting that back in the mix with their number 1 offense in the country. So I like them to hang in there. I'm not fully sold on the full game yet, but I'd like to hear your take on this one.
So for Illinois, this is a team that I've liked more than the market has most of this year because of the offense. This is the number 1 and number 2 offenses in KenPom going at it in this game, which actually kind of surprised me the total isn't higher. Now, UConn's defense is awesome as well. They're top 10 in both. They're a juggernaut. They're beating the snot out of everybody. I was trying to find the right word that was air appropriate there. But they're just crushing everybody. And, I mean, the closest game in this tournament has been 17, which was Northwestern, and that game was 25 for the majority of the second half. Can anyone get close? And looking at the way the bracket has broken down here now to the final 8. On this side of the bracket, Illinois is the only one that even makes remote sense.
Which you've been saying.
Which I know Alabama is still there, and they have the explosive offense, and we could get a game where they hit 18 threes, and all of a sudden it's a real game. But Alabama's defense is considerably worse than Illinois' defense. And Illinois' defense in this tournament has been quite good, actually. Now, you want to look at the offensive ability of all the opponents they played? Okay, you can say it's more that than the Illinois defense. If you wanted to, I wouldn't have an issue with that. 52, or that's Connecticut's numbers. But Illinois in this tournament, again, under a point per possession against Iowa State, a little over 1 in the other 2 games. You'll take that for what Illinois' defense has been the majority of the year. With that said, Alex, I just don't know, more so than anything, how you can expect anyone to play tight with UConn the way they're playing. Because normally in this tournament, it is so difficult to go back-to-back. There's a reason we haven't seen one since the Florida Gators did it in the mid-2000s when they beat UCLA and then Ohio State the following year. But they're blistering everybody. Going back to last year in the tournament, the closest game they've played in the last 2 tournaments was 13 points against Miami in a national semifinal last year. 13.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. Now, I'm not going to bet this game. We're going to stay out of this, at least pre-flop. In-game wise, the total is what I'm looking at. Because if there's good shots in this game, but people aren't hitting early, and this total dips, we're coming over. There's no way we're taking it under in this game unless there's something really surprising happens. But you got the number 1 offense and the number two offense. But this UConn team is just, in the end, it's just too strong. They're just so much better than everybody else that unless if Purdue gets, unless if Edey gets Klingon in foul trouble and the refs are totally out of control in a potential UConn-Purdue national final, I just don't see how anyone beats UConn at this point. And that includes Tennessee, who 2 days ago I thought was one of the 3 teams that had a legitimate shot of beating UConn, but it's just the strength of this Husky team is pretty ridiculous.
You're right. I do think it might take Purdue and Zach Edey and what they have done from the perimeter there. So I think they could put it all together and really give it a good shot here. I'm excited. I think we have an in-game opportunity for totals for both of these games because we'll get to the second one. But depending on who is dictating the pace there, I think we'll be able to jump in on that one. A major concern for me, Jeff, is thinking about this UConn team and thinking about last year and when we got to the championship game. The sharp bet was SDSU, and it was a different SDSU team. I understand that, but it was 5 minutes with 5 minutes to go. 5-point difference at 5 minutes to go, and then UConn just took over and blew them out as well. And that was the sharp side, taking the points here with the Aztecs and that run that they were on. Great defensive team, and they still didn't stand a chance. So a lot of noise, a lot of people on Illinois tonight thinking that they do have a shot. And while I do believe they do, I think they could run away with it at the end here.
The big question again as well for Illinois. Terrence Shannon has been incredible in this tournament. UConn, of course, great on the defensive side of the ball as well. If Shannon gets slowed down, where does the offense come from? Again, I'm a big Domas guy who has been great throughout the year. Coleman Hawkins has been very good in this tournament. But in the end, again, it's just really, really difficult to see anyone, especially in a de facto home game for UConn.
Right.
In Boston, how is anyone going to beat this Husky team? But it is the NCAA tournament. And as is proven through the years, one and done can prove some very unexpected results. And again, if of all the teams remaining, especially on this side of the bracket, of the other 3, we'll get to the West final a little later. I do not see how Clemson can possibly stay in the game against UConn. And Alabama, it will take one of those ridiculous 3-point shooting games to stay in the game. If we get bad shooting Bama, oh boy, that thing will get ugly, and it will get ugly fast if it's UConn and Bama in the national semifinal. But Illinois at least can beat you on multiple ways on offense. So, again, I'm not saying Illinois will win this game, but can they? Yeah. The offense is there. UConn has a bad shooting game. It's the NCAA tournament.
You're right.
It's a one and done.
Absolutely.
Anything can happen, but still, still would lean to laying it with the Huskies if we're betting a side here today, if we had to.
The one advantage here that Illinois can use is they had a terrible free throw shooting night the other night
They
against
sure did.
Iowa State, but they're relatively a good free throw shooting team, 73.6% on the year. So I think that will increase today, but should be a good game overall. I'm excited about this matchup.
Alex, I know you don't have any plays on the women's side, but I do want to touch on it real quick. We have 4 games on that side, including LSU and UCLA. That Washington Post article dropped on Kim Mulkey.
Oh, did they?
It dropped.
Okay.
I haven't read it yet. I'll read it after the show. Up to 3.5. Actually, just some late action on LSU now here. Just moved in the last 4 minutes. So market wide, it is 3.5 now. UCLA the 2 seed, 144.5. Look, the defending champs. Had a wayward regular season. Not the most harmonious within the team this year. All I'll say is, Alex, is LSU is unbelievably talented. And that has never been in question this year. The question will always be with this team will be what version of them are we getting? Are we getting the team that ran to the national championship game and won it last year? Or are we going to get an effort like we've seen throughout the year where they're not all there mentally? If they're all there mentally, LSU is going to win this game and cover. If not, I would be very, very cautious about doing anything in this game, especially now at the worst number of 3. Fine, 3.5, no thanks.
I feel like Kim Mulkey has a good control over her team. Do you think that outside noise will impact them at all?
I have no idea.
Yeah.
I really don't. I don't know. The Pac-12, I will say, the Pac-12 has had just a magnificent year. Last night, Stanford got stunned in the second half by NC State. Really, again, Stanford up 10 at halftime and ends up losing by 10. So just a total reversal. And credit to the NC State Wolfpack, who are in the Elite Eight on both the men's and the women's side here in 2024. But again, the Pac-12 has had an amazing year. We'll see how UCLA does here tonight. It might be USC only standing by the end of today for that league. Caitlin Clark's in action, so you got to bring it up. Right. Market high behind us is 7.5. The rest is 7. The total is dipped 5 points from the opener. At other shops, 3.5 here from 161 to 157.5. I'll just go with what I've said the whole week. I think Colorado's live here to win this game outright. Now, you have to factor in, it maybe is a little different with this game being neutral sited in Albany as opposed to the Carver Hawkeye in Iowa City. The way that Iowa was officiated in the round of 32, and I will not stop talking about this. West Virginia got totally hosed in that game. Totally. Got it back tied, and then the refs just took the game over for Iowa at that point. And you have to have that in the back of your mind with Iowa games at this point, just because of the attention that Caitlin Clark and her greatness has brought to that program. Colorado at one point in the year was in the top 3 in the polls. Colorado beat LSU by double digits here in Vegas in the first night of the season. They were good in the best league in the nation. I wish I was getting a little bit more than plus 290. If I was getting in the 350 range, this would be a no doubt. Let's go. Let's take it on the Buffs and see what happens. I'll take 7.5 very happily with Colorado. If it loses, all right. Well, then Iowa's great. Caitlin Clark's greatness showed up today, but 7.5 is too much. I think this should be closer to 6, closer to 5 actually, with the Buffs here, Alex.
I will say, yesterday you said the same thing. Moneyline NC State. That you definitely should have taken. You said, I wish I was getting a little bit more here.
Yeah.
But no, I think that is the right side, Jeff. We talked about it. Iowa, very good offensively. Don't play a whole lot of defense here. So I think Colorado can hang around in this one.
Yeah, the Buffs, I think, are very much in this game for sure. The other 2 women's games, real quick. USC is 3 against Baylor. Too light. Lay with the Trojans. Too light. The USC's a lot better than this Baylor team is. And I think just a lack of experience for USC is why the market is fading them. And I'm not buying that for a second. Best player in the game is Juju Watkins. I like USC, honestly, a lot more than 3. I think that's probably the best bet between the two tournaments today, tomorrow, probably moving forward as well in the Elite Eight on the women's side, where South Carolina is 16 right now and Texas is 5 in their matchups. And then Duke and UConn, I got nothing. 8.5 is right. Duke with the big upset over Ohio State, and then UConn struggled for a little bit against Syracuse, but Huskies are well equipped to beat this Duke team and get back to the Elite Eight again.
Sounds very familiar.
Well, I've only been in the Sweet 16 30 plus years now straight. I mean, what Gino has done is truly incredible there at UConn. All right. You want to hit some baseball real quick before we get to John Jansen?
We're going with baseball.
You want? Yeah. Oh, don't sound too thrilled there, Alex.
Well, you and Sean have been kind of throwing me off. Like I need to.
Well, first off, don't. We love our guy Sean back there, but thank you. You beat me to it, but I don't. Sean, we're gonna have to slow our guy Sean down because he won't make it to the end of April at this rate. Even though we talked about again, unit sizing very important in betting. Sean is the proper sizing of bets right now, so I'll give him that. He's doing well on that. All right, I'll give you the floor first, Alex. Where do you want to start here in baseball today?
Let's go ahead and start. Let's start with the Dodgers.
Oh, right to it. Yamamoto makes his first start at Dodger Stadium tonight. Lance Lynn goes for the Cardinals, who amazingly Lance Lynn is back on the Cardinals yet again. First two games of this series have been a mismatch. Dodgers win big on opening day, got out to a 6-0 lead last night, made it a little interesting, but won 6-3. They're minus 215 behind us with a total of 8.5 in this one, Alex.
I'm not touching the side. I think that is actually a little bit too high. I would lean towards the Cardinals here in this one, but I'm just going to fade both of these starting pitchers, and I'm going to go over in the first 5 innings because we saw, how do you say it, Yamamoto, in his first start and was taken out, made it about 1 inning. He also struggled in spring training. So, I mean, these offenses are just too good. I think you're safe going over that 4.5 first 5 innings. I also like the full game over, but I'm going to play first 5.
Okay, first 5 over in this one. Yamamoto's first start in South Korea was a disaster against the Padres. It'll be interesting to see his adjustment through the year. Of course, was the best pitcher in Japan the last few years. Largest contract ever for someone coming in from Japan right out of the gate. It's be very interesting to see how he adapts throughout the year. All I will say is, and real quick on the Cardinals end of things, I know it's a little unfair because of looking who the opponent is through this first series where they're playing the best team arguably in baseball, at worst maybe the second best team in baseball. But their starting pitching, if Sonny Gray doesn't get healthy, boy, their starting pitching is a disaster. And there's no reason to think that it will get much better. Yeah, maybe it'll get a little bit better because they play 160 more times. But
closed as the favorite in that division. I think they opened as the favorite.
I didn't understand that at all. I really didn't. I know a lot of people, because of the quote-unquote Cardinal way, will give them the benefit of the doubt. Last year was awful. I haven't had a season like that since the mid-'90s. I'm not so certain they're any better than they were a year ago. So they're a team I'm looking at now. It's hard when you're playing the Dodgers.
Right, let's not overreact.
But it's hard to because of the pricing on the Dodgers, it's hard to fade a team that you want to fade.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even though the Dodgers have won and covered the run line in both of the first 2 games. But once the Cardinals start playing some other teams where the prices are more fair, probably be looking to go against them more times than not. All right, Alex, what else are we looking at today here in baseball?
All right, we are looking at some unders under Mets and Brewers.
Okay.
So I like this game under, but it's already down to 7.5.
Yep.
So I do like the first 5 under here with the Brewers and Mets.
7.5 full game, 4 first 5 juiced over. It was 4.5, but not very long. And it was also $1.25 on the first at 4.5.
So we did have some weather there in New York. I should check that and make sure that we don't have any wind or anything.
12-mile-an-hour wind. We're going to have to see what direction that's blowing. Yesterday in Citi Field, it was whipping in,
Okay.
and there was one home run. There were only 4 runs in the game yesterday. Mets had 1 hit. Well done there. But it's an interesting one because I'll be honest with you, DL Hall, I know nothing about DL Hall, who's making the start on day 2 for Milwaukee here. And for Severino, who's coming off of just an injury-plagued mess a year ago with the Yankees, actually looked pretty good in spring training. So maybe Severino finds what he was earlier with the Yankees. Again.
Well, there's been a trend, right, with the Yankees pitchers leaving and doing better.
Somewhat.
Yeah.
Somewhat. Again, for Severino, better ballpark.
Definitely.
For a pitcher to pitch in, as we know. All right, Alex, what other total are you looking at here?
Actually, I'm looking at a side, and it's an underdog, but
Go for it.
Bear with me. I'm going with Kyle Hendricks in the Chicago Cubs against the Rangers. I think that's just that price is too high here for the Rangers, even though they are at home. But Hendricks coming back after that shoulder injury, came back last year, did well, improved his ERA, now has a full spring under his belt. So I know he's getting older, but I like him here in this spot. Should be probably a little plus money, maybe plus 110.
Plus 110 behind us. There's some plus. The best number I'm seeing is plus 112. Yeah, I mean, Hendricks, as always with Hendricks at this point, is keep the ball in the ballpark. That has been the issues over the last few years for Kyle. Again, that Cubs team, that was one of the more ridiculous games on opening day where home plate umpire missed a blatant foul tip that gave Chicago the lead, and then the Rangers found a way in extra innings to win 4-3 on Thursday. Again, 2 projected playoff teams for me in that matchup. I thought, I'm not that interested in that one. Just looking at the only thing I would even consider today, go back to the well from what I did yesterday, where the first 5 was much better than the full game. I would be on the Phillies in the first 5 again. We did it yesterday with Wheeler. We got there, fortunately, a 2-run homer in the bottom of the 5th. Got us a 2-0 first 5 win before the bullpen imploded for the Phils yesterday in a big win for Atlanta. Fried and Nola are even enough. At least to me, they're even enough.
Agreed.
And you're getting plus 110 in the first 5 on Philadelphia. I think that's worth at least the thing you get. Obviously, again, it's not the same as full game, but you at least have the match opportunity in the bottom half of the inning. The only other bet I would look at, total's high, I get it, but I would look to bet the over in Arizona and Colorado. The Rockies pitching staff might be the worst pitching staff ever assembled. And the Oakland A's exist right now. That's saying something. For Colorado so far, opening day was hilarious. It was 16-1. Yesterday was 7-3. You may even look at a high Arizona team total over as well. I mean, this Rocky pitching staff is so bad, and Gomber was awful last year. So we're looking at, that would be the only 2 things I'd look at today. I'd look at over in Arizona and Colorado, and I would look at the Phils in the first 5 on the money line against Atlanta, and that would basically be it. I am looking for a way.
Both of those.
Looking for a way to fade the Angels, but I can't quite get there on the pricing today with the Orioles. Oh, actually, I forgot one more. First 5 under in on the south side of Chicago, under 4.5 with Detroit and the White Sox. There's another one I didn't mind.
Yeah.
Really just depends on what you get out of Soroka, who we haven't basically seen pitch since the pandemic hit with all the injuries he's suffered. But we get any sort of version like we saw in Atlanta, and that's a pretty good pitcher. And Kenta Maeda, rock solid for Detroit. And the White Sox are terrible. I can't believe the White Sox, how bad they have gotten over the last few years. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we get back, we'll check in with Philly. John Jansen, Fox Sports The Gambler. We'll get his thoughts on the Elite Eight games tonight and also the Phillies bullpen performance from yesterday. That's next. Sports by the Book, South Point Studio.
from the South Point studio. The perfect blend of sports,
But I think the Niners are going to wear them down. Detroit Pistons lost their 36 games.
comedy,
See over-under on that relationship lasting. I'm going to put mayo in the coffee.
I am beautiful.
and a whole lot of Pittsburgh.
In Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh. Yeah. Pittsburgh.
Join Ryan McCormick,
That's at least 2 picks outside of our own in the first round next year. Oreo.
and host Frank Nicotero.
I look at the clock, I go, ah! Ah!
Watch Punchlines live at noon every weekday.
Once you've satisfied your hunger, get ready for more of the hottest casino games in Vegas. Our 24-hour, 30-table non-smoking poker room proudly hosts all the most popular poker games with a variety of betting limits. Visit the poker room for a schedule of daily tournaments. Whether you're going to hold 'em or fold 'em, the best place for poker is at South Point Casino. You'll notice that our craps tables are usually the loudest in the casino. If you've never played, join one of our free craps lessons to find out what makes this game so exciting. Check with the craps dealer for schedules and give it a roll. Bingo is also an exciting way to spend your time. We offer 7 sessions of bingo every day. And each session includes a cash ball jackpot, 12 bingo games, a progressive double action game, and a $10,000 bonus coverall. Electronic units are available. If you haven't played bingo with us, give it a try today. Guests can also get in on the action at our one-of-a-kind race and sports books. 2 separate rooms designed to maximize your experience and comfort. Our sports book, with over 400 seats, puts you right in the middle of the action, 24 hours a day.
Welcome back in. It's Sports by the Book here at the South Point studio. I'm Jeff Parles, Alex White's alongside. And now joining us, our guy, John Jansen, Fox Sports The Gambler out of Philadelphia. The Line Change is the podcast that's now available. Amazingly enough, I was the inaugural guest on the podcast, which that says more about you than it does me, I would say, John.
Probably does.
Yeah.
What does it? Keep your enemies close. So I'm just,
Yeah, there you
I
go.
didn't make
Very,
sure,
very
make
good.
sure I had you right where I can see you.
Very, very good. And, of course, the Daily Ticket, at 3 o'clock Eastern time, Monday through Friday, with our good friend Sean Brace as well on that.
Friend, I don't know about good, but friend.
Well, he is a friend. He's a friend. He is also a certified crazy person, but we love Sean. So it's all good on that. All right. I won't start you with the Phillies because I don't want you to get mad at me right out of the gate. So I'll start you with the NCAA tournament first, John. Let's start with UConn, who has just been demolishing everything in their path. Again, dating back to last year's tournament, 9 straight games that UConn has won by at least 12 in the NCAA tournament, covering all of them en route. And here we are, 8.5 today against Illinois. 155 the total. John, I think Illinois is game to at least keep this thing tight for a good chunk of it. It's just a matter of getting to the finish line, whether it be on an outright upset or covering 8.5 here.
Yeah, and I think Illinois kind of has the prototype team, the team that you would want to go up against UConn. I think it's mostly with UConn, you want to just try and score. And I think Rick Pitino was the one that really discovered this. Hey, let's not play any defense. We know UConn's efficient offensively. Let's not waste any of our energy defensively. Let's try and get to 100 points and see if UConn can match us. And they did against St. John's, but still, that's a really hard thing to do and a hard thing to do against a team like Illinois that can score. So I think Illinois is equipped to handle it. But I was on a show earlier today with Dick Girardi, who does Penn State he does Penn State color commentary for the radio broadcast, and he was talking about Illinois, and basically there is a lot of hero ball there. Like that is in their DNA, hero ball. And I have a feeling, and he was talking about the blueprint of this game and how it might go. Illinois can score, but if they ever get desperate at any point, UConn's really efficient. They're probably going to be up 7-8 points at one point. If Illinois gets desperate, they're probably going to play that hero ball, and that's not going to work. That's inefficient offense. That's probably putting up bad shots. Now, if they make it, which they can, that's good, but it's probably not going to be efficient shots. And the inefficiency against a team like UConn, who is extremely efficient on both ends of the floor, I don't know if that's going to work against UConn. It's what makes them so hard to beat. I love the guard play for UConn. Love the presence inside with a guy like Klingon. I just think UConn's going to be too much to handle for Illinois. So as much as I agree with you that Illinois, the 8.5, I think that is in play. I lean a little bit more towards the UConn side because I think Illinois, by the end of this, the last 5 to 7 minutes, just going to be putting up shots that aren't good enough to win against UConn.
John, top 1 and 2 offense here in KenPom with these two. Total sitting at 155. Feels a little bit low, but we know Connecticut is very good defensively as well. Are you interested in this over, or if you like the Huskies, maybe a team total over 82?
Yeah, it could be a team total over, but I think this could go over the 155. I think Illinois is going to want to run. I think these two teams can both get in the 80s and UConn potentially in the 90s with how bad Illinois' defense is. UConn has been able to hold teams under 60, but they haven't played any good offense yet. So I don't think that really has anything to do with it. But I think really this game is going to be a fairly high pace, very fast pace. And I think Illinois is going to want to push that pace, and they're going to score. Illinois is a great offense, one of the best offensive players in Terrence Shannon. So I think this game is going to be high scoring. It's just that after, so long, like Jeff said, can they stay in by the end of it? I think by the end of it is when we start to see the inefficient shots go up. But I do think there is going to be scoring in this game.
I should have gave you the option. You can always bet unders too.
No. Come on. Let's not give.
I'm not good enough of a bettor to do that. It's over. I want the fun.
I mean, in honor of Frank, we only talk about overs on this show. Apparently so. All right, let's go to the football matchup that happens to be in the NCAA tournament here, John. Clemson. If NC State didn't exist, this would be the flabbergasting run of the tournament. But to Clemson's credit, they have had a plan in this tournament. Lock you down defensively, hope that the three-point shooting variance is in their end, which it has been in this tournament. And you know what? Credit to Hunter, credit to Hall, credit to the chef. All those guys have performed on offense in this tournament, and here they are with a potential shocking Final Four berth for them on the line today against Alabama, who is the most high variance team in the country because of the way they play. Bama's 3.5, totals 164.5. Can you do anything with this one pre-flop?
I think for me it is Clemson. Now this is one, if you're on Clemson, definitely take the under. And I think this could happen where both these teams end up in the 70s. It could end up playing out the same way it did with Arizona. We know Alabama likes to run the floor. They like to shoot threes, but the variance of shooting, I know Clemson has gotten lucky in almost every single game that they've played in the tournament. They've gotten really lucky with the 3-point shooting variance, but also there's got to be credit at some point of maybe they just make things tough. They do kind of force you in the tough shots. And I think Clemson should get a little bit of credit for that. And offensively, as you just said, they've been able to make things work. I don't think they're the best team offensively. This is a really tough Clemson team, and I think they're going to be tough for Alabama. And Alabama's been shooting somewhat well throughout the tournament, so maybe this is another game just like Arizona where they just go cold. I don't know if it's going to be Caleb Love type cold where I think he was 0 for 9 from 3, but I think this game could be in the 70s. I don't think Alabama is just going to easily run the floor and be able to put up 90, 100 points on a team like Clemson that's playing really tough defense. So yeah, I lean the 3.5. I actually lean the under, so at least one under on the show I can give. But that's kind of where I would lean for this game.
I'm with you. I do think Clemson will be able to control the pace, at least in this game. Macro, anything you like, maybe team to come out of a certain region, Final Four, or that you've already bet that you would double down on here?
Yeah, I don't know if I'd double down on any kind of bets or team futures, but I think I am kind of the mindset of I think Purdue's just good. And maybe I'm looking at right now for the championship plus 330. I know it's going to be tough because they have a really tough matchup in the Elite Eight against Tennessee. But I think we have to just take what we've seen from Purdue at face value. I know all the things in the past. We could talk about that all day long. Matt Painter's teams have failed to really do anything in the tournament. First round exits, losing to 16 seeds. Like all of that has happened. But they look phenomenal. They look just as good. I know they're not as good as UConn. UConn is the best team in college basketball. There is no doubt about that. But Purdue has the best player in college basketball in Zach Edey, and the guys around him are playing really well. We knew that they were better than last year. We knew the guard play got better than last year. And it was just, can they do it in the tournament? Can those guys perform well in the tournament? And they're all performing extremely well. I think it's very clear that Purdue is actually the second best team in college basketball all season long behind UConn. It wasn't Houston. It wasn't North Carolina. It wasn't any team. Tennessee, Arizona. The second best team in college basketball all along has just been Purdue. And Purdue has kind of proven that all throughout the tournament. And so I'm taking it at face value. They beat Gonzaga pretty bad. And Purdue, I think it's going to do that again against Tennessee. Their defense is playing really well. Zach Edey is a matchup nightmare, even though Tennessee does have a little bit of size. I just don't think it's going to work because Edey's playing that well, and everybody, again, is playing very efficient. The guard play has been efficient and three-point shooting efficient around him. I love the way Purdue has looked.
Well, that's a big difference from what Purdue has been in the past as opposed to what they are this year. The guard play is so much different. I mean, Braden Smith almost had a triple-double yesterday. I will say that game got out of hand when Watson picked up his fourth foul on a play where Edey almost tackled him. So the big thing with the Tennessee game, John, going through this is how will Tennessee's physicality be officiated? If Tennessee's physicality gets officiated like it did yesterday, Tennessee's got a real shot to beat Purdue tomorrow afternoon in Detroit. If we get the wrong set of refs and it's, we're going to officiate this like we have all year with Edey, I don't see how Tennessee can stay in the game. And I hate that's part of the handicap for me, but how that game is officiated tomorrow in Detroit is really how that game is going to go more so than anything.
Yeah, certainly. And maybe it's just part of Zach Edey's game, that he is such a tough player to play in the post that he is going to get fouled. He is going to get to the line. So I get what you mean. I know sometimes he gets like an NBA whistle, which is crazy to see in college basketball, a player get that kind of whistle. And I understand that, but that might just be part of Zach Edey's game that he does well. He plays through contact. He plays a little bit physical. They have to play physical against him because he's such a big body. And most teams don't have a big enough body to really guard him. Again, Tennessee has some size, but still they're going to do the same thing. They're going to be physical, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of contact, and Edey's going to get to the line. I think you're right that this is part of the handicap, but I think for me, it's not a part of the variance of the whistle. It is to me that I think it's just part of Zach Edey's game and something we have to account for.
One more matchup we have to get to, and it's a ACC matchup. We've got NC State taking on Duke. Duke, a 6.5-point favorite, total 143. Do you like anything in this game?
I do like the Wolfpack. I know what was this on a neutral court? This was 11, I think, in the ACC tournament, which is wild to see how much this line has moved just compared from that game to this game. But it's deserved, and NC State's playing that well. I love the confidence they're playing with, and NC State proved to be a bit of a matchup nightmare for Duke. Duke does have a problem sometimes with size. It's why North Carolina, I thought, was excellent against them all season long. They had a tough time with Armando Bacot and the other forward that North Carolina has. I think they're going to have a lot of problems with the two bigs down low, especially DJ Burns. DJ Burns really didn't do much. I thought he played somewhat well, but he just wasn't asked to do much in the last game for NC State against Marquette. It was the guards that I thought were extremely good. Now, Kolek and Jones did score. I think Jones had 20 and Kolek had 17. They did do well, but still the guard play scored. And I think that's the bigger thing is that they did get scoring from their guards. DJ Horn has been excellent all tournament, but I think it's more Burns that I'm looking for in this game. Duke has sometimes not handled size very well. And Burns has it's crazy. He has some of the best footwork, I think, down low in college basketball. He's like an old school post player, and I think he's going to give Duke a lot of problems. So I'm actually taking NC State in this one.
You brought it up. The fact that it was 11 on a neutral, 11.5 even just 2 weeks ago. And yes, NC State's power rating has gone up considerably. It's still too much of a move for me. And, boy, I mean, this Duke run, I mean, a 13, a 12, an 11, a 1 that isn't any good with the injury. Ridiculous.
I didn't think Duke played that well.
They didn't.
Loses a quality of player like that, and it's still a close game. Yeah, that can't be something I remove from that. Give credit to Duke for winning the game and moving on, for sure. But that's part of it for me is that Duke didn't look good in that game, and Houston was without their best player. I think that has to play a big part in this. And I don't think Duke has looked all that. They look great against James Madison, so maybe I'm wrong there, but I didn't like the way they looked against Vermont. They were somewhat efficient, but it was a really just slow, odd game from them. And then I didn't like them against Houston. Now, Houston still, I mean, they just want to make chaos, and they can still do that even without Sheed. But I don't think that they're going to be able to just ramp up offensively or be able to ramp it up against a team like NC State again that is playing extremely confident. And this seems like NC State actually has the matchup favors them a little bit here.
All right, John, let's go to baseball. yesterday. I don't want to overreact to one game, either for either of our teams, even though I'll overreact to the Mets being terrible. But the Phillies, look, I'll say this with the Phillies, John. You and I have talked about this a lot. The National League is pretty simplistic. The Dodgers and the Braves are in one class. Now the Phillies and the Diamondbacks are in another class. And then it's who cares after that? Whoever the other two playoff teams happen to be, they'll play each other in the 3-6. But I will ask you, though, John, even though it's one game, was yesterday a little alarming because of the way the bullpen reacted to facing that Brave lineup right out of the gate?
Yeah, I don't want to overreact too much because it is the Braves lineup. And so, yes, you are going to get shell-shocked sometimes when the Braves are just throwing out 1 through 9, some of the best hitters in baseball. I do. So it really was Matt Strahm that it all kind of started, this downhill spiral. Now, Alvarado kind of got a little bit unlucky. I know he was all over the place as well. So Alvarado, I think, will be fine. But it's guys like Matt Strahm that I do worry about. Matt Strahm came on last year. He was starter. Then he went into the bullpen, did well in both spots. I just don't know if I trust him. I don't know if I can trust Kerkering when he comes back. Really good arm, but he's young and he hasn't pitched a lot in the majors. I don't know what he's going to look like. I think there is a bit of variance here that's going to happen in the bullpen that I do have a question mark about. But still, overall, I think they'll be fine. And I know Phillies fans wanted to get really excited about this team and that they can compete for an NL East. And look, they're a World Series contender. They will be all season long. There is no way they can keep up with the Braves in 162. In a 5-game series, that's easy. Phillies have the top-end pitching to do it. The Phillies have the top-end bats to do it. 5-game series, absolutely can compete with the Braves. 7-game series gets a little bit harder. 162 games competing with the Braves for a playoff spot, or at least the top spot in that division, it's just not going to happen. This Braves team is in a different class than everybody else. I think even in a different class than the Dodgers. I like the Dodgers, and Bobby Miller looked really good, and so they do have some young arms that are great, but the Braves have everything. They 1 through 9, they're perfect. They have the top-end talent. Matt Olson's turned into one of the best hitters in baseball, maybe has been, even when the Atlanta Braves initially got him to replace Freddie Freeman. Ronald Acuna is the best player in baseball, in my mind, or at least the best batter, and Shohei Ohtani's the best player, but best batter to me goes to Ronald Acuna Jr. This team's just loaded, and I don't know how any team is going to compete with that. 162 games, they're probably going to end up being the best team in all in baseball. Now, where the Phillies, again, catch up is in a 5-game series, everything changes, and the Phillies can compete. We know they did the last 2 seasons. But yeah, this idea that the Phillies can win the division, to me, is thrown out the window, and I think you saw that yesterday.
That's the bittersweet part about baseball, right? You don't have to compete all season. Just make it into the playoffs, and you've got a chance there. How has the baseball season gone for you so far, and did anything jump off the board for you today?
Baseball so far has been pretty good to me. I've really liked Cincinnati, and I've really liked Pittsburgh coming into the year. Pittsburgh, I mean, I know it's Miami. You don't want to overreact to 2 games, but the fact that O'Neal Cruz and Ke'Bryan Hayes are having this much of an impact early on, I think those 2 guys are candidates for big breakout year, and Pittsburgh could be just a fun team to watch, a competitive team to watch, and maybe one we can make some money on. I am actually going back to the Reds, though. I really like the Reds. Their lineup is great. I think their lineup has been, it was great last season. I think it's going to be great here against Patrick Corbin. I don't think the money line's high enough at minus 175, but obviously you don't want to take the money line. I saw this run line at plus 125 or 123 earlier today, and it's dropped all the way down to plus 114. So you're losing a bit of that plus money, which I would have liked to have, but still at plus 114 for the run line. I don't think that's short enough. I think this should be probably close to even money. Washington's one of the worst teams in baseball. Washington's throwing out one of the worst pitchers in baseball, and Patrick Corbin and Hunter Green. You're kind of waiting for the ERA to get better for sure, and you're waiting for sort of all these things to happen for him to have that breakout year. But what you do see is the underlying numbers, FIP, XFIP, xERA, all of it looks fantastic, and Hunter Green has the stuff. It's just, I think, learning to be a better pitcher and learning to be a smarter pitcher, and I think Hunter Green is probably going to put that all together this season. I just don't think the Reds are valued as a team like they could be one of the best teams in the National League, and especially in that National League Central, and I think they should be a much higher. They should probably be a $2 favorite. They should be maybe minus 200, and I do think this should be close to even money with the run line. It's just, you're not going to get that yet because it's still Cincinnati Reds. They have to prove it, but I think this team is much better than Washington, so I'm taking run line with the Reds today.
Patrick Corbin Day, a celebration among baseball bettors over the last few years.
Baseball's really back when you get the fade Patrick Corbin. That's when it's really back.
He's John Jansen. Get him on the tweets at JJansen34, Fox Sports The Gambler in Philadelphia. The Line Change is the podcast. The Daily Ticket is the show, 3 o'clock Eastern, Monday through Friday. John, Pleasure as always, man. Thanks for hanging with us today.
Thanks for having me, and see you guys in a couple of weeks when I head back to Vegas.
Yes,
again,
we
heading
will.
back again.
We will see you. We will see you for the Masters. That is right. We'll see John and his co-host Sean Brace for the Masters here in a few weeks.
They'll be in studio with us then, right?
Yeah. Hopefully,
Yeah.
John. Who knows? John's a very busy guy.
Okay.
So we'll see. Vinny Magliulo walking into the studio. I'll have Vinny in a second. I want to go to Clemson and Alabama as Vinny is making his way in here, Alex. 3.5, 164.5. You know my stance on Alabama games at this point. Just because of the 3-point variance and the way that they play, I cannot touch this game. Even though I would lean, this is a very correlated game. If you like Bama, you like it over. You like Clemson, you like it under. I think this is the easiest correlated game of the entire tournament so far.
I agree. And I think you will even have some chances in game to jump in on the total if you don't like this opening number here or where it's going to close. Huge concern for me, Jeff, is Alabama has some injuries. We already had Wright Sell not play the last game because of a head injury.
Yep.
And then Nick Pringle questionable with that heel bruise. So I think that is that's scary here for Alabama. I do have a future ticket on them. I'm going to take Clemson, take the points, kind of hedge off there. But even in regards to winning this game, it makes me nervous. And it's kind of like Kentucky when we followed them. Fun team to take the points with, not a great team to lay the points with. I think that you said it pretty clear. That's Alabama.
Yeah, I mean, Bama's 3-0 against a number, though, in this tournament, which not expected going in, but here they are. Again, this matchup very unexpected. More likely to see it in the National Football semifinal as opposed to an Elite Eight. But we can say actually now an Elite Eight in college football now, Vinny, because it's a 12-team playoff. We can go. It's just going to be the quarterfinal. We're not going to give it a fancy name like the Big Dance, probably.
Well, somebody will come up with something, I'm sure. And, of course, we'll probably go to 14 teams.
Well, we're going to 14 pretty quickly, probably. The Elastic 8?
Yeah.
There you go.
Maybe. Very good, Jeffrey. But, look, we've got good matchups here. Listen, some surprises as the tournament usually produces. I was listening to your comments, particularly about Alabama. But, listen, they've covered. But when you can shoot like they can shoot, there's a pretty good chance that they're going to be able to cover. But now here you have a situation where they're the favorite, right? They're the hunted in this one, so to speak. And it's amazing to look at what teams, are how they're playing now, right? You want to be playing your best ball at this time of year, and Alabama is an example. Clemson, certainly North Carolina State, no let up with that team whatsoever. So. And good for them, and it makes for a really good tournament. You've got, you have Goliath in Connecticut. Certainly Purdue is up there, so you still have the two of the 4 number 1 seeds. But you've also got some great stories, which is good for business too. And I know it's exciting for people watching, but it's also great for business. So we're enjoying it.
I'm with John. Purdue looks really good right now. What do you think?
They do. I think the key for Purdue is going to be, can they? It's about Zach Edey. I get it, but their perimeter shooting, right? So Tennessee, they're going against Tennessee, tomorrow, and Purdue's a 3-point favorite. Tennessee does not defend the perimeter particularly well, but they are a solid defensive team overall. But it's just that I think is going to be, the key. Focus or aspect of the game tomorrow for that one.
You said it, Jeff. That region has been the best, and I don't know if that is partly chalk. We're getting all the best teams down here playing each other, but
that was even though it wasn't 1, 2, 3, 4, it was betting chalk in the round in the round of 32. The biggest thing again that part of the reason I'm probably not going to bet that Tennessee Purdue game pre-flop, but we still have 24 hours plus in order to get there. The way that Edey is officiated is going to make a big difference in that game. Because last night, Tennessee was allowed to be physical with Creighton, and they only got called for 6 fouls in the second half in a very physical game. 18-0 run spurred them to that win last night.
Yeah.
I don't know if the way Edey's been officiated this year, I don't know if Tennessee's going to be able to be as physical as they want to be with Edie. But if the game's officiated, not so, if they let them get away with contact, Tennessee's live to win that game out.
Oh, no question. The difference, though, is that Creighton was they committed the fewest fouls per game.
Correct.
They were less than about 11 or 12 fouls per game.
Yep.
So their defensive discipline really is going to be, certainly a different situation here. With Tennessee and Purdue. So, every game is got a different element to it, and of course, Edie's just at 7'4", they're going to collapse on him, and he's going to get contact. So, and the refs realize that too. So that's going to come into play.
Going to the early game today with UConn and Illinois, Vinny. The bettors did take this back to 8.5. Alex and I asked Alex before. I would imagine we'll probably see 9 again by the time this game tips. But it's hard for me to see this going through 9 with the resistance that we saw once it got to 9 earlier in the week.
I don't think
the days, I should say.
In a way, Illinois can shoot as well. I think I think they're at 9 is we certainly know the threshold, and I don't think this is going to be just a landslide. Now money line parlays, okay, but they're still laying, better than 340, 350, even 360 in some spots. So at some point, so overall, I think it'll be a two-way game. But listen, can Illinois win this game? Yeah, they can beat them. I mean, at some point, there's going to be a game. Now, whether it's in this tournament or not, there's a possibility, I should say, of Connecticut going up into a situation like they did when they went to Creighton. I mean, obviously that was at Creighton. And this is neutral, and it's for all intents and purposes they're the home team here, right? But I think Illinois is going to get some support. Certainly with 9, I think we'll definitely. It's not going to be a landslide in terms of one-way betting action.
While we've been on for an hour, that total has already started to move up.
Yeah.
Would you imagine it's just going to be just?
It's up 2 points now.
Frank Nicotero right to the window.
Yes.
So if you like it over, you better get it this morning, right?
Oh yeah, it's up 2 points already off the opener, right to 156.5. So
a little late.
156. A 2-point move to the over is not going to stop Frank. I mean, let's face it.
No, I think it's a requirement that Frank takes the worst possible number out there at this point. So he did it with Caitlin Clark's over yesterday, where 31.5 was sitting out there the whole day, except for the last 10 minutes before the game. He loses by the hook. Hey, look, he's still gonna get he's still gonna win the prop probably, because I still think UConn wins this whole thing when it's all said and done.
Well, they're 5-6 to win it.
Yep,
now,
yep,
right?
it makes sense.
Yeah, he's gonna probably win that, but Matt Neverett is in the lead
he's gonna
right
win
now
the pool
for
portion
points
of it.
wise.
Yeah,
The pool portion, yeah.
Okay.
But Frank's busy today. He's actually covering for me at the ballpark. So
I saw that,
be out
Alex. Yes, and speaking of the ball, you're everywhere. You and Ann. I mean, you're just from one corner of the valley to the other. So good for you both. That's outstanding. Yeah.
Thank you, Vinny.
Good job.
To the Vinny, I just want to ask you before we get out of here today. Actually, 2 things. Clemson, Alabama. Bettor's a little bit tepid on this game, I think, for the reasons that we brought up a little bit earlier.
Yeah, Clemson, you could say, are they playing with house money? Well, look, I mean, the thing about it is now you have Alabama as a favorite, right? And I heard Alex mention the injuries. I don't think that the injuries for them are as significant as what happened with Houston last night, right? And let's remember this: Tennessee had a late scratch in their starting lineup last night too. That really kind of took some people by surprise. The thing about it is that this Alabama team, they're always a factor because of their shooting and their shooting from the perimeter. And I will tell you this: let's face it, in their last game, it was their defense that in the last couple of minutes that really made a difference as well. Their defense complemented their offense. It created their offense actually in that win. So I think that this one is another one that's going to be a two-way betting game, and I don't think any of these games are really going to disappoint. From our side of the counter, good matchups, good action, and the fact that there could be a case made for not only teams covering, but when you have a close number like this, either side winning.
Great menu today too. We have a bunch of baseball.
Oh yeah,
a lot of hockey, women's
college hoops,
yeah.
UFL. Don't forget the UFL.
UFL too.
Week 1.
Yes.
Week 1 of the
Just take all the underdogs and the unders this week, everybody. That's probably a good way to go 0-8 when it's
good
all
horse
said and done.
racing today too. A couple of derby.
Sean's
starts.
watching the card in the in Dubai here today, Vinny.
There you go, Sean.
I mean, look at that. I do want to ask you,
Yeah,
because
buddy.
the women's tournament obviously today. Yes, South Carolina was in action yesterday, but today it's LSU's first, Caitlin Clark and Iowa's second.
Yep.
USC, which is a draw here for obvious reasons.
Oh, they're a great team
is
too.
third,
Mhm.
and then Gino Auriemma, Paige Beckers, and UConn are last. I mean, you can't ask for, if you're looking for, like, I would imagine handle wise, this day could be as good as any day in recent memory, because of just the teams involved today, Vinny.
Well, when you look at them too, right? You mentioned the LSU game. Look at the times of the games. So they're early.
Pretty good too, yeah.
Right? They start early. The men are playing later today. And remember last week we had the Iowa game on the big screen with the guys. So the interest in the women, particularly with the teams that you mentioned, right, Jeff? LSU, Iowa, USC. I mean, these are you still got the tradition, right, with Gino Auriemma that you mentioned in Connecticut. There's a lot of support and a lot of following, a lot of interest, and the betting interest has been strong as well. I think that the way the games are positioned time-wise, because they're going to be the basketball focus until the guys play later in the afternoon, the morning, and the midday are really going to be all about the ladies, and rightfully so. They deserve the coverage, and the folks are backing them at the window.
This betting card is much more intriguing to me than the two men's games today.
Yeah, well,
But
you've
it's
got more variety.
There's
too,
more
right?
variety,
So,
obviously,
which is
but
good,
it's
yeah.
also, again, as Alex and I have pointed out, at least I pointed out to Alex, Alabama's the most impossible team to figure out just because they're the way they play. The variance is outrageous.
Oh, they'll make you crazy.
Yeah, it's outrageous.
If you're involved in a game, if you have a ticket either on them or against them, you're going to go out of your mind. So there's no question about that.
And now that there's no like true road games anymore, where you could go against them on the road, it's very difficult, difficult, Alabama, to say the very least. All right, Vinny, thank you.
Both of you, good
Alex,
job.
thank you. We are on tomorrow. It is Easter Sunday, but we will be here getting you ready for the 2 Elite 8 games tomorrow. There'll be some Elite 8 games on the women's side, a full card of baseball as well. Plenty to get to as always. We'll see you tomorrow, 8:30 in the morning. Sports by the Book, South Point Studio.